Hello, my name is Bonnie Burke, and I work for Workforce Resource. Today's presentation is on resumes that will get you results. 4 things I hope that you will learn from today's webinar on resumes. The first one is I hope that you will be able to identify and state your qualifications for the job that you are applying for on your resume. And I'm going to really talk a lot about your qualifications as we go through this material. The second piece is I want you to be able to identify keywords / qualifiers from job ads. Together, we're going to look at a job ad, and I'm going to have you highlight the keywords in that job ad. The third takeaway that I hope that you will learn from today's training is that you'll be able to develop an effective resume, and a resume that's going to get you an interview. And last but not least, we're going to briefly talk about how to email your resume and cover letter. More and more job ads now are asking job seekers to email resumes, to do online applications, and that's another whole new world in itself. Way big changes compared to those paper resumes. So I hope you have some handouts in front of you, and on your note page, I'm going to encourage you to take notes as we go along. Jot down a few things that you want to remember. My goal for people who attend the webinars is at a minimum that you will learn 3 things that's not only going to help you with your resume, but also it's going to help you in your job attainment journey. So, what do you think of this picture is? Look close. It's actually a resume. Now, I'm not telling you to go out and create a resume that looks like this. However, this gentleman was applying for jobs in marketing. He was not getting any results. He thought he needed to shake things up and do something a little different. So instead of a chocolate bar, he created a resume bar. You can see his name. You can see down here, these are his qualifications. Instead of ingredients such as chocolate or milk, he has traditional marketing, he has online marketing, he has brand marketing. So all of his ingredients here are also his qualifications. And then of course you have to have contact information. How is the HR person going to call him? Well, that's what's over here in this part of his resume bar. So you might be asking yourself, so did he get the job? And from my ability, when I did a little research, he did get the job. So once again, I don't want you to create a resume bar, just a traditional resume. However, if you do have a resume and you're not getting interviews, chances are something in that resume needs to change. So hopefully today I can give you a few tools to change that up. So the first place where I want you to start is start at the top. Making sure that your name is bold, it is a larger font. Below your name, your address, and your phone number. I have a horror story I want to share with you. I was working with a client, and this guy had amazing qualifications. And however, he was not getting interviews. He was like, Bonnie, what's wrong? I keep submitting jobs. I know I'm qualified for these jobs. I know I could do that job. So I said, okay, let's look at your resume. Let's just go through number per number, letter per letter, just line by line. What was wrong with his resume? His phone number was wrong. He had transposed the last 2 numbers of his phone number. Yikes, right? He was just sick. He ended up getting a job about a month later. However, to me, I learned as a workforce resource consultant so much from that. So my word of wisdom to you is take your resume and have somebody dial your phone number using the phone number that you have on your resume. You don't do it, have somebody else do it, because of course you probably know your phone number and you could say it in your sleep, and you may not know that you've transposed a couple numbers. So be very, very careful with that contact information. The other piece is to use a professional sounding email address. Oh my goodness, over the years, I have seen some crazy looking email addresses. And I'm like, really? You're gonna put that on your resume? This one, of course, I've changed some things up for this presentation, but hotgal10@hotmail.com? Oh, an employer would look at that and go, I don't think so. Another one, please call me at gmail.com? Well, you want the HR person or the hiring person to call you. That might get a little smile, but really, some of you may know that about 5 years ago, I had lost my job. And the job search journey for me initially was grueling. I had worked for the same company for over 13 years. And so I had to start almost from scratch doing a resume. The piece that I had to change also was my email address. My personal email was filled with family pictures and emails from my husband and all these other websites, all this junk mail. And I thought, you know what? I wanted to create an email account that I used just for job searching. So I created a professional sounding email address and only used it for job search. I wanted to make sure that if an employer contacted me via email, that their email was not going to be lost amongst all of my junk and family emails. Just a good tip, you might want to think about it. So, your email, your phone number, your address, verify that they're correct. I want to talk next about using an objective. Objective truly is old school. So nowadays, people are saying instead of the word objective, at the very top of your resume, have a summary of qualifications. And I'm going to show you some examples of what that's going to look like a little bit later on. So one example that I have of an old style objective would be obtain employment with a company where I can grow. Really? Employers really don't care that you want to grow. They want to know, what can you do? What are your qualifications? Here's another example of an objective, a lot better. An administrative position focusing on client relations and customer service. Well, at least the person knows what type of job you're looking for and that you want a job where you'll focus on client relations and customer service. However, it doesn't say anything about your qualifications to do that job. So the second one, however, much better than the first one. Doing research for this presentation, I found a really good article, and the author of that article name was Martin Yates. It's called Knock 'em Dead, Professional Resume Writing Services. At the top of your resume, Martin calls that prime real estate. He said, what you put on the top of that resume, making sure it gets that employer's attention, that it talks about your qualifications. Remember, as adults, we remember what we read first and then what we read last. And so what you put first on your resume, you want it to stand out, you want it to be powerful. He says an objective is a waste of time and space. No recruiter and no employer really cares what you want until they know you have what they want. It sounds pretty cruel, but it's true, absolutely. So that first section of your resume should profile your ability, your qualifications to do the job you're applying for. So when you think that through, and if you have to apply for 4, 5, 6, or in my case, I think it was 20 or 30 jobs, each time you apply for a job, that resume should change. And I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So I'll give you another example of a summary of qualifications. So this is at the very top of the resume. In this example, somebody is applying for a job as a semi-driver or a CDL driver. So with over 30 years of safe work experience as a CDL driver, will assist Procore is the name of the company that this person is applying to, in delivering value to your customers. What do you think of that for a statement of qualifications? I have had some people tell me, really, would you put over 30 years? And personally, I would, but that's just because of my age. But if you're concerned at all about age, you could change 30 years and put numerous or put several. So that is a fairly decent example of an objective that you could change into a qualification statement. I rewrote that one in a different manner, so I want you to read this example. Same job, same employer. Focus on safety has resulted in a clean driving record, along with no workplace injuries. Holds a Class A commercial driver's license and maintains compliance of all FMCSRs. What the heck is FMCSRs, right? Well, chances are, if you're applying for a job as a CDL driver, the person who's looking at your resume, they should know. That stands for Federal Motor Carriers Safety Regulations. However, if you are applying or submitting your resume electronically, and I mean you're responding to a job ad on the internet and you have to now email or attach or download your resume in addition to the FMCSR, right behind that, write out exactly what it is. We're going to talk about that in a little bit because those online resumes, most of the time, a person is not even looking at them initially. It's being scanned by a computer. So that's why it is critical when you use acronyms such as CDL, or if you're applying for a certified nursing position, that you don't just put the acronym, that you spell it out as well. So the second one is a little bit better. In any job as a driver, safety is critical. And this person seems to have a pretty safe driving record. I wanted to show you this example. In some of your handouts today, you will have several examples of really good resumes that you can take home with you and use. Why I like this one was because I wanted to show you how large Beth put their name on the top. Absolutely, you do not want that hiring manager to guess, who is this? And you don't want them to have to squint. If you're applying for a job and the HR person is probably 50 years or older, if they have to get out their bifocals, your resume might just go on the bottom of the pile. So her name is big, her address is just okay, and over here, what I feel, she has a really old email carrier, Comcast.net. To be honest with you, I'm not sure they're still operating an email service. Yet, many people have said, once again, earlier I encouraged you to change an email, professional sounding, to create an email account that's just work related. And so to create an email account that's more current, such as Gmail. Okay, so your cell phone. Remember, once again, have somebody else dial that phone number, making sure that you have the correct number. We're not going to talk a lot about LinkedIn, but as you notice on Beth's resume, she does have her LinkedIn address. Within the next couple of months, I will be creating a webinar on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a professional website similar to Facebook, but it's like Facebook for job seekers and professionals. Well worth the time of looking into it. And if you currently don't have a LinkedIn account, take a look at it, or maybe you can attend that webinar when I get the materials completed for that. So she has her email address, she has her LinkedIn address, and her phone number. You can tell at a glance, Beth is applying for a job as a project coordinator. Don't have to guess there. This, the highly motivated, tech-savvy professional with over 5 years in a fast-paced consulting environment. You can tell she's got some experience within those first few lines, and with these bullet points, those are her skills. It's so easy for the hiring manager to just skim and say, yep, she's done project coordination, she knows how to use Microsoft PowerPoint, Excel, project. If this woman is applying for a job that those skills are required, chances are, I feel pretty comfortable, she would at least get an interview. So I wanted to show you that example. One of the handouts that I have for you in today's presentation is an activity called Your Strengths. And on that handout, I want you to take a few minutes, and you can finish this after the webinar also, of circling what do you feel your strengths are. I'm going to pull that up here so that we can be looking at the same one together. That oftentimes, as adults, it's really difficult for us to think about our strengths. And it's like, are we bragging? And oftentimes, we have to brag when we are having an interview or meeting with employers. So some of these are not just strengths that are hard skills. So are you creative? Are you dependable? Do you have a good attendance record? Do you have good positive attitude? Can you be trusted? So take some time, check the strengths that you feel you possess, and I'll show you later how to put those in your resume. And definitely, those will be strengths that you will be talking about at a job interview. Good. So hopefully this handout will be helpful for you. And if it feels uncomfortable as you're writing down your strengths and thinking about your strengths, just keep in mind that's normal. Most of us were not raised to be boastful or proud, yet this is the time in your life where you're going to need to be boastful and not be shy to speak up about what you can do and what you're good at. So, what skills are employers looking for? I found this survey from the University of Wisconsin system, and they surveyed thousands of employers. And look at some of the top must-have skills that employers are looking for. Wow, most of those are soft skills. The ability to think creatively. 75% of them said that was a skill that they needed. Critical thinking and problem solving, 64% said that that was a must-have skill. Working in teams, the ability to have great written and verbal communications, basic science and math concepts. All of those skills from all of those employers can be things that all of us can work on. But the ability to think creatively, how do you prove it? You can put that on a resume. It's easy to type, it's easy to write, but remember, you are going to have to back it up. You'll have to prove it. So, keywords and qualifiers. Tailor your resume to the job you're applying for. And this really is where some of the work begins. So, another handout that I have for you is of a job ad. In that job ad, I want you to take some time and highlight what you feel are the qualifiers that that employer is looking for. This is a job ad that actually came from the Job Center of Wisconsin's website, and it's for a customer service representative. And that employer wants to have somebody who has at least 2 years of office or business experience. So what if you only have 1 year? Go ahead and apply, absolutely. They're looking for somebody that has high-level interpersonal skills, that can resolve conflicts, that can do creative problem solving. Wait a minute, didn't you just see that on the survey? Absolutely. I was really impressed when I looked at this. They're also looking for good mechanical aptitude. When I read that, I thought, really, good mechanical aptitude for customer service rep? Be interesting to see what this employer does. But look at how easy that employer listed the qualifications. I always think of those qualifications as that employer's Christmas wish list. They have written down everything that they would love to have in a candidate. However, most employers say that they are willing to accept at least 75% of the qualifications, especially if the person has strong communication skills, if they feel that that person's going to fit well within their organization. So don't get nervous when you see a whole list of qualifications, and if you feel you only have 50%, 75%, I'm going to encourage you to still apply. So if you have the ability to type 50 words per minute, that goes on your resume. If you have the ability to multitask, that goes on your resume. If you are excellent telephone skills and professional presence, that goes on your resume. Remember, the next job you apply for, their qualifications in that job ad may be different, and so you may need to change it. So hopefully this activity
gave you a small amount of practice of understanding the importance of reading those job ads, understanding what are the qualifications of that employer looking for, and then putting those qualifications on the top part of your resume. Pretty simple, right? Wrong. It does take work. It really, really does. But good. So I want you to do that activity with you. So we're going to go back to our PowerPoint slides and say, what else needs to go in my resume? So we've talked about the top of your resume, right? We've talked about probably don't use objective, use qualifications, making sure that your qualifications on your resume are what that employer is looking for. So the next part of a resume should be your work history. Some people have titled that part professional experience, job experience, but work history sums it all up. On an average, you don't need to go back much further than 15 years. Well, the older I get, the more I think, I have really had not a lot of jobs, but to be honest with you, they don't want to know that I waitressed for 16 years when I'm applying for a job as a trainer. So those jobs when I was waitressing, that was back when I was in my 20s. So I wouldn't put that on my resume unless I was applying for another waitressing job. So take a look at your entire work history, and realistically, you only need to go back 15 years. Some people say, I want them to know what I did, yet what that employer wants to know is your qualifications. Okay. So you may list your jobs in chronological order. When you are writing that resume and listing what you did, also write your accomplishments and the results, not just the job task. And this is an example. If the employer is looking for someone who's dependable, and you can say, yeah, that's me, I'm dependable. Well, the next step is prove it. How do you prove on a resume that you're dependable? Well, this is an example. The person put dependable, they have excellent attendance record. No unplanned absences in 5 years. What? No unplanned absences in 5 years? Most employers would be very, very excited to read that. So that proves that you're dependable. Use action verbs. On your handout, there's a whole page that talks about different action verbs, such as developed, facilitated, processed, managed. So when you're describing your responsibilities, start out each bullet point using an action verb. Hopefully that handout will be helpful for you as well. So what else goes on a resume? Remember, the average resume should be about 1 page long. However, if you have very valuable information, when I think of veteran status and education and volunteer work, if it's valuable, it is fine to do a 2-page resume. But most employers do prefer a 1-page because what we have heard at the Job Center that the average employer skims the resumes. They maybe are looking at it for 30 seconds, max. That's really sad. You've spent hours and hours working on this resume. Yet, keep in mind that if a person is looking at that resume, he or she may be looking at 10 other resumes, and he or she has many, many other things that they have to do that day as well. So they are skimming it. So what they want to see is, what are your qualifications? The other pieces of information on that resume are veteran status. Some employers actually give preferences and they hire veterans first. Put your education, and I'm not talking just if you have a technical degree or a bachelor's degree. When I think of educations, I think of even the certificates for those of you who have completed the webinar series that we're offering certificates in. Put that on your resume. My last job, I had just completed a class in lean manufacturing. Well, it wasn't from a technical college. I didn't get a certificate. I didn't get a degree. However, the skills that I learned from that job, that class, applied to the job that I was taking. So keep in mind, it doesn't have to be a formal school in the information you put in the education section. Volunteer work. The longer people are laid off, that gap in your resume employers are going to start asking, so what did you do during that time? Volunteer work is an absolute perfect and a great activity to do during those downtimes in between jobs, and it's a valuable activity that employers look for as well. So if you've been doing some volunteer work at your children's school, at your church, at the United Way, write those tasks down under a section on your resume titled volunteer work. Another section that one of my clients shared with me, and I've actually encouraged others to do this since, it's called interim activities. For an example, I worked with somebody who had a 2-year gap on their resume. And I'm like, so what were you doing during that 2 years? Were you sick? You know, what was going on? Do you mind sharing it with me? And he goes, yeah, I was a stay-at-home dad. Financially, their children, it was so expensive to put them in daycare. His wife had an okay paying job, and they decided that he would stay home to take care of the children because her job paid better and she had the health insurance. So for 2 years, he did everything from repairing furnaces, air conditioning. He managed all the budget. He did some pretty unique conflict resolution, i.e. breaking up kids when they fight. So he had a section on his resume that he filled that 2-year gap of time with, and he titled it his interim activities. The next line said, stay-at-home parent. It's like, wow. And he did start getting interviews. He said that one of the hiring people laughed when she read conflict manager. If you have children, you know exactly what he means. So this resume is a functional resume, and I just wanted to show it to you briefly. A functional resume highlights your qualifications and skills, and it just puts your work history as individual line items on your resume. So your accomplishments, your qualifications are at the top, and your work history is at the bottom. Resumes do not all need to look the same. So I wanted to show you a different example of a functional style resume. So on your handouts, if you've never written a resume, or if you think your resume is such a disaster you just want to start over, one of your handouts, I have a template for you. And the template, actually, I was able to download it from the Job Center of Wisconsin's website. And in that template, after you fill in the blanks, and if you need help typing it, make sure that you ask at the Job Center. If you're working with one of the consultants at the Job Center, they may be able to help you type your resume up. In that handout, it's going to talk about formatting and content guidelines. You'll have a list, once again, of your action verbs. And the best part, it's going to give you some resume examples. In fact, I'm going to pull some of those examples up. So look at your handouts and find the resume that's titled Earnestly Bad. Kind of funny, right? Earnestly bad. Well, this resume is bad. And I wanted to show you an example of an earnestly bad resume. So his email address is toohottotouch@outlook. Oh my goodness. I wonder what kind of job he's applying for. Read his objective. Get a good job for a big company that will give me great experience and help me earn the money that I need. Do you think an employer really cares? No, they don't. So then he chose to put his education next. And if you've just recently graduated from a program within the last 3 to 5 years maybe, put your education on top, especially if it's a requirement of the job you're applying for. However, for Earnestly Bad, you can see that he graduated 1986 and 1978. Take those dates off there. He had a GPA of a 2.8. I would not put that GPA on my resume. I enjoyed this job until the housing market crashed. Well, he got a little confused there with his layout. That statement had nothing to do with his education. So, Earnestly Bad, he's living up to his resume. So look at his work experience and notice that he references himself. So he says, I made, I answered, I loved. In your resumes, you should not ever use pronouns. Remember, start those bullet points with action verbs. Keep the pronouns out of a resume. Definitely can put that into a cover letter, but they don't go in your resume. He doesn't have years that he worked at these positions. It's really difficult to see what was the job. So I would have to look very, very carefully. And in my 30-second skim, chances are this is going to go in the circular file. Look at Ernest Liebad's interest. He likes boating, he likes cruising, he likes self-defense, he likes dancing with the stars and playing with my 3 cats. This probably has nothing to do with the job he's applying for. However, if you do have hobbies that completely relate to the job you're applying for, absolutely put those on your resume. In this case, I don't think so. I wanted to share with you a very bad resume and then share with you how Ernest's resume was rewritten and now he became earnestly good. So look at his email address. It is E.L. Good, his first 2 initials and his last name, absolutely perfect, at outlook.com. And then he starts out with his career summary. It's just 2 to 3 lines. He has 10 years of experience in sales and marketing management, recognized for his ability to effectively communicate and work with colleagues, clients, and senior management. Proven ability to increase profitabilities and customer loyalty. Wow, that would get my attention if I were a hiring manager. And then look how easy it is to see his skills. Bullet points are far easier to read than are full sentences. So keeping that in mind when you're listing your skills, remember the skills that I had you underline on the handout earlier? Those skills, this is where they go on your resume. So he has skills in social media marketing, writing and grammar, radio and print advertising, supervision and training. At a glance, I can see his skills. And look how much easier it is to see his work experience. His position, he has bolded, and he has the years that he worked there over to the side. Very well laid out, very easy to read, and a nice use of some action verbs there as well. So I hope you got a smile out of Ernest Liebad's resume, and then also a good example on how to present an excellent resume. Remember Ernest's education? Not so good, right? And it kind of aged him if he graduated back in '78. So look at his education now. It's absolutely fine not to put the years down if you're not comfortable in doing that. So he said he has a BA in communications. He graduated from Ace Business College in California. Absolutely fine. So he has a nice 1-page resume. I want to show you another example in your handout. If any of you have just recently graduated from any program, even the Certified Nursing Assistant program, or became a CDL, a truck driver. So any program, if you're a recent graduate, look at this resume example. It's going to talk about their summary of qualifications. They put their education right up on top. And his grade point average, 3.7, that's pretty impressive. That's really good. And once again, they put their qualifications in bullet points. Very easy to read. Nice, easy to read resume. You can look at their qualifications. This one also lists volunteer experience. Now, remember I said, when we are out of work and not working for money, volunteering is, to me, it's good, it's a win-win. It's good for our souls, it's good for the volunteer agency, and it's amazing for your resume. So they wrote down their volunteer experience, their years that they did it, and then also who did they volunteer for and what was their job as a volunteer person. So pretty nice resume example. Another one, Robert Retail. Kind of funny, right? His career summary. Look how easy that is to read. You can see his summary, you can see his skills, you can see his experience. Could I see that within 30 seconds? I think I could. Absolutely, I think I could. And if his career summary really caught my attention and I wanted to read more, then I probably would slow down and spend another couple of minutes reading over his experience and his skills. So take a look at Robert Retail, and the one piece I want you to point out for his resume is look at some of the dollar signs and numbers that are in here. Employers want to see results, not only what we have done, yet what were the results of our last jobs. So for an example, I'm going to read you the second bullet point. Remove cash, checks, and credit card transactions from customers, handle between $2,500 and $10,000 per shift. Served approximately 10 customers per hour with an average checkout of $175. Wow, you're telling that employer exactly what you did, how much you handled. The line above that I loved also because he achieved 98% accuracy. So he's giving us numbers, not just that he was able to cash out at the end of the day, but what was his accuracy. The other piece is how many people did he have on his shift? Well, he had to schedule 15 people. He monitored 18 checkout stations. So when you're writing your resume, remember, they are looking for not just what you did, but also what was the results from what you did. Good, so I wanted to share that one with you. And he has his education on the bottom. Good. And the other piece that I thought was kind of unique with his resume, and you definitely do not need to do this, but he has a little quote on the bottom of his resume, and it's actually a quote from a former co-worker. And it was a miniature letter of recommendation. I'm a little confused on how I feel about it, but once again, if what you're using on a resume isn't getting you the interviews, try something different. And also remember what's on your resume. They're going to remember what they read first and what they read last. So if this statement from Mike, the store manager, got their attention, it might be just enough to get him that interview. So I'm not going to go over all of the examples that I have in your handouts, yet I really felt it was important for you today to be able to leave with some examples of resumes that you can refer back to when you're working and creating on your own. So good. And then also remember that template that is on your handout. Sometimes people get so overwhelmed. Where do I start? Where do I begin? Well, to me, start with that template if you haven't started one already. So I'm going to share with you just a few more tips about resume writing. The first one is do not exaggerate. Remember Robert Retail? He talked about his accuracy. And I thought 98%, ooh, that could be a lot of lost money, that 2%. But if he said he had 100% accuracy and yet he only had 98, that might come up with a phone call to an employer. So do not exaggerate. If possible, and we've talked about this already, one page, but sometimes it's not always possible. Use bullet points to list your skills, and this is one of my pet peeves. Do not put references available upon request. Most employers do not even want to see those references until after they have interviewed you. They're only going to check those references once they feel that you may be a good candidate for their company. And you can see how many times I put proofread on there. Proofread, proofread, proofread. And once you've proofread it, have somebody else proofread it. A friend, a family member, someone at the job center, somebody who knows nothing about you, have them proofread it. The other piece I want to share with you is if you do not have time, let's just say you see a job opening at a job fair today. You stop in and you're like, oh my gosh, I need to get them my resume. I want to have that resume in their hand by the end of the day. So the piece that I'm going to encourage you to do is pull up your resume. Let's hopefully you have it on a flash drive or a paper copy. Walk away for at least 10 minutes. Go back, pick up your resume, and read it out loud, word for word. Don't read it to yourself. Your brain is going to think something else than what's on the paper. So if you're in a crunch and you've got to get that resume to an employee and you don't have a chance to have someone else proofread it, read it out loud, word for word. You will be amazed. If there's errors, you will catch them. So once again, have at least 2 people review it. I have a funny little video on resume errors. This, I hope it makes you smile, but then also makes you appreciate and realize how important that proofreading is. In the video, she's going to tell you how many errors the average HR person will accept.
And we are talking about resume typos, the mistakes people make when they're applying for the jobs.
And they're funny,
Yep.
especially when they're not you, you know? Okay, so yeah, if you're looking for a new job, AOL.com, this is where we got everything from. They have a big list, and they say that last year, a temporary staffing firm interviewed about 150 senior executives. Are you ready for this? 40% said 1 typo, and you're out. That's it. 36% said, we'll take two typos, but then that's it, and you're really out. I don't know if I'd want to work for those people.
I know, right? Well, you know what, actually, I mean, but that's because in the business we're in, as long as you say it right, it's okay.
Right, for us it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter as much, but when you see stuff like that, and that's a person going to be representing you, I can't say I blame them.
And 1 typo, I mean, 1 little letter out of place can make a really big difference. So
Yeah,
let's take a look at some of these, and we'll see these. A woman wrote the article. She went on some job sites and found some good ones. All right, objectives: seeking a part-time position with room for advancement.
What kind of advancement you're going to be doing with that?
See, that's where 1 little letter makes a big difference.
Okay, achievement: planned a new corporate facility at $3 million over budget.
Yeah. Okay, let's see another resume state. Okay, skills: I am a rabid typist. I can guarantee nobody wants to work with you if you're a rabid typist.
As you foam at the mouth and bark at people as they go by. Okay,
Right.
let's see, what's the next one? Hobbies: I enjoy cooking Chinese and Italians.
I mentioned this one last time because that one tickled me. I was dying. I think that's
just wrong.
Incredibly
It's just wrong.
funny.
Why just them? Why not everybody? You can't discriminate.
They're not up with things. All right.
Now, this is somebody who was way beyond the 6-year plan.
College, August 1880 to May 1984. That's a big problem. You make a mistake on that simple thing, and they're like, "What's with this? You know, you're not getting hired."
Yeah,
Okay,
it means
that's
you've been
funny.
partying a lot. Cover letter. This was a sentence that was in it. I would like to assure you that I am a hardly working person.
At least they're honest. I would hire
hardly work.
for honesty on that one. Okay, that is funny. Personal information. Married, 8 children, prefer frequent travel.
That's way too much information.
Yeah, you don't need to put that kind of stuff
But
on
here's the
there.
thing. With 8 kids, I'd probably try to get out of the house too.
This does actually mean, right, I desperately need a job. I have 8 kids. I'm dying to get out
I'm
of that.
motivated. I am highly motivated. Okay, what's it?
Well, I hope that video made you smile a little bit. Can you believe it? Some employers, if you have 1 typo, 1 misspelled word, your resume goes in the circular file. I'm like, really? So be very, very careful. It depends on the job, I'm sure. Other people said maybe 2, yet proofreading it and having a friend or family member proofread, you will be able to avoid those errors. So avoid using resume templates. If any of you are familiar with Microsoft Word or many, many websites, there are templates out there that you can kind of fill in the blank. However, with most of the templates, if you need to make a change on your resume, it's very difficult to make a change. So my suggestion for you is ditch the templates on Microsoft Word or what you'll find on the internet, and just use whatever Word program your computer has or what's available at the job centers. My next tip for you is, remember I said many years ago I waitressed? Well, after I waitressed, I worked in manufacturing. I drove a forklift. I was a painter. I'm not applying for those type of jobs. If I was, well, maybe I'd put them on my resume. So for me, what I have done, and this is what I'm going to encourage you to do, create a master resume. A resume that lists all of the job experiences that you've had, all of the years that you've been working, that has listed all of the classes you've attended, all of the degrees or certifications that you have earned. And then from that master, tailor your resume to the job you are applying for. So for an example, when I would create a master resume, I would save it as Bonnie Burke's master resume. And then if I was going to apply for a workforce resource, I would save it as Bonnie Burke resume workforce resource. And you're right, I have a lot of resumes saved from my job search year of unemployment. However, having that master resume is going to save you so much time when you are looking for your qualifications for the jobs you're applying for. So, another resume tip, formatting guidelines. Remember I talked about earlier about having a font size so that the person who's reading it does not have to go get their bifocals or cheaters? Use a minimum of a 12-point font. Avoid using fancy font, and there are so many creative fonts available for you to choose, but use a font similar to Arial or Times New Roman. And then once again, remove or do not use any personal pronouns such as I or me or we. So 12-point font. Where your name is up on top, absolutely, that should be a minimum of a 16-point font. That should be large. They should be able to see your name at a glance. So remember, a great resume tells not only what you did, but how well you did it. So another little tip that I want to share with you on resumes. If by lucky chance you get to submit your resume in paper, which is happening less and less nowadays in our world of technology, make sure that you do it on professional bond or resume paper. I have a big red X over that fancy paper. Don't use that. That looks like paper I would use for a birthday party invitation or something. Although the colorful paper, well, it's going to get their attention, but it doesn't look very professional, so don't use that type of paper. The resume paper that you see on your screen is more expensive than just the regular white normal paper that you'll have in most copiers or printers, but it is worth the investment. And once again, if you are working with someone at the job center, they may be able to help you print your resume on some nicer resume paper. So use good paper. Make sure it's the same paper though that you write your cover letter on and also submit your reference on as well. So I'm going to do a quick review. Once again, I gave you a lot of information in just a really short period of time. So what 3 things did you learn during this training that's going to help you with your resume? And if you don't have 3, that's fine. I hope you have at least 1. In addition to work history, what categories should be on your resume? Did you catch that? Look at those examples. So your summary of qualifications, absolutely. Put that at the very top, right below your contact information. Your skills need to be on there. The skills that you have and that you can prove that you have. Education, volunteer experience, and then also I missed on my bullet points, if you're a veteran, making sure that that information goes on there as well. So how often should you revise your resume? And this is where the work begins, is most of the time you should revise that resume with every job you are applying for, especially if the job that you are applying for is in response to a job ad. Study that job ad, making sure that the qualifications that are in that ad are on your resume if you have them. So, true or false? List every job you have held on your resume. You might be tempted, but the answer is false, especially for people who are getting 35, 45, 55 years old. Employers do not want to see all of that work history. What they do want to see is approximately 15 years worth of history. Because to be honest, the skills that we used 20 years ago are probably not relevant at all in today's world. Just think of all of the technology that has changed in the past 15 or 20 years. So that is the other reason why employers say 15 years of work history, is a good amount of work history to share on your resume. A few final thoughts. So from what you've learned from this session, review your resume if you have one. What changes do you need to make to your resume? So hopefully jot some of those down. Work with someone at the job center. If you do not have a resume, complete that resume writing outline. It's in your handouts. And then my last final thought is, if further assistance is needed, because I know this could be so overwhelming, see a resource specialist at your job center and request an appointment. If you currently are not working with someone at Workforce Resource, they may have you complete our online application. Resumes are a very powerful tool. In today's world, it is one tool that can be very, very helpful in getting you that interview. A couple of the classes that I'll be talking about also in our career services webinars will be networking, and we have a webinar on how to do a successful interview. One last tip, final thought I want to leave you with resumes. When I had lost my job, I spent many, many, many hours rewriting and rewriting my resume. My husband said to me one day, he's like, Bonnie, when I leave for work in the morning, I see you at your computer working on your resume. When I come home from work in the afternoon, I see you on the computer working on your resume. You need to stop. And he was right. I needed to get out, I needed to network, I needed to talk to friends and family and people who were in the field that knew about job openings. So I hope that you will attend our networking presentation, because my husband was right. I needed to do some networking. Thank you so much for attending this webinar on resume writing. I hope you've learned several tips that are going to help you in your job attainment journey. Thank you so much for attending, and have a great day.